Hey, in this video I'm going to go through how I sculpted a Perlin noise function to generate the terrain that you're seeing here. What you're seeing is the mesh generated by the marching cubes algorithm, which uses the border between the positive and negative parts of a function. In this case, we're using many Perlin noise functions. What we're doing is we're transforming or scaling and rotating each function, and then we add, subtract, or mask them with other Perlin noise functions. This is easier to understand when you see in real time how each transformation of a function changes the terrain. So I'm going to switch into a scene where the terrain is generated at 60 frames per second. Now I'm going to go through sort of the code of how this is all made. So the first thing to think is about is this is actually a volume of data that we are supplying, right? It's being created on the GPU. I'll get more into that later. But 60 times per second, we give a new set of data, and the train it's sort of created out of that through the marching cubes algorithm. If you don't know what that is, you can think about it like everything below the mesh, the data value. So if this is a volume of data, everything below the mesh, the data is below 0. And what you see here, the mesh, right above the mesh, all the data points are above 0. But right in the border, that's where the marching cubes algorithm will generate this mesh for us. So the first thing I'm going to do is comment out what's being displayed right now, and then show a very primitive, so very simple version, a very simple data. So this is just the Perlin noise divided by 5. Oh, it's giving an error because the scale is too small. So let's just change the scale here. Okay, there it is. So this is just simplex 3D Perlin noise, and that, like before, it's being generated at 60 frames per second and being moved to the left. So right now there's too much islands and stuff, so for now I'm just gonna remove this, and we're just gonna show what the Perlin noise is for the X and Z, so we're ignoring the Y. So this is what it looks like, a lot of columns, but this isn't really what we want. So now I'm gonna compare that value that's generated at this X and Z to the Y. So negative Y plus Perlin height. That basically checks if the height is greater than the Perlin noise or not. And right in the border of between 0 and this being negative, it will create the mesh. Okay, yeah. Well, let's increase the scale. See, this is more like a terrain now, like rolling hills, but still it's too uniform, right? It's only one level of detail. So let me just comment that out. And now we're actually gonna iterate through a bunch of times and add a whole different levels of detail. Okay, the scale's too big now. Okay, as you can see, there's a level of detail that's sort of these bigger hills, but there's also these whole bunch of smaller hills. So that's being done by different levels of Perlin noise. One's being applied at a higher amplitude and one's being applied at a lower amplitude. So let's comment that out. Now we actually want to, so right now it's only one data, sort of, you only get a, what's the best way of saying this? You only get a 2D data. It's basically no overhangs or islands. So what we're going to do is actually add a little bit, because we don't want too much, add a little bit of 3D data to it. Okay. It's a little hard to see, so let's increase the scale. Okay, yeah. So it's hard to see, but okay, right there, you're actually getting a little bit of overhangs and caves and stuff, right? It's sort of digging into the hill. Right there. Okay, this is pretty cool, but well, there's another overhang. That's better detail. So right now there's hills everywhere, right? Hills and overhangs everywhere. It's sort of too uniform, right? So what I'm gonna do next is introduce areas that are more flat and areas that are more mountainous. Basically what I'm doing is introducing a mask, right? And so it's gonna give me a data between 0 and 1, and depending on what that mask is, I'm gonna multiply it by the height, right, for the X and Z. So if the mass is 0, everything in that area will be flat. But if the mask is 1, it's going to be the same as before. Okay, so you can see those flatter areas and again the more mountainous areas. See, that actually looks a lot better. Let's turn up the scale. Whoop. So that's a flat area, and this is the mountainous area, and that's super satisfying to watch. It's the terrain emerging out of nothing. Okay, next. So this is just gonna add a little weird. This is a little weird. Maybe a little too much, but sort of adds these weird artifacts. So like pads. So they stick out and they help to break the world up. Okay, so that right there, that's a path. It doesn't look like one, but it still breaks things up. Some might not like that because it doesn't fit in quite well, but it is what it is. See, this is neat. I really like this effect of having the terrain generate at 60 frames per second, but I think the demand on the hardware is too much. Like, I don't think this could be done in a game, but it'd be cool too. Especially when it just generates. that is satisfying to watch. Okay. Next up, we're gonna add actual caves. They're not gonna be super connected to each other or anything, but just more detail in the below the surface. So those detail, that detail you see on the that's sort of what I just added. Also this too right here. So you can see it sort of looks like a cave. And I think that's it. That's basically everything. So if I actually hop out of this 60 frames per second scene and go into the sort of the game scene, if you will, then we can see what's happening. Yep, so it's loading in, and it's basically just a bigger version of what we were seeing on the 60 frames per second. Yeah, I really like this. It looks pretty cool. It's a neat effect. Oh. So these overhangs, these are being created by the caves I added. And this right here, this is a path. Oh, cool looking lake. There's no underwater shade or anything. It's just simple water playing about. It looks cool from above. Right, a little bit of reflection, but if you look right there, it's sort of flickering. That's because it's being it's out of the view frame, so it's being Unity's not rendering it anymore. That's why you can't see the reflection. But if I look up, sure, it'll sort of pop back in. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I spend a lot of time on this. It's so easy just to get lost in this world, right? But I have to snap out of it and get back to work. So that's it for my Perlin based marching cubes role generator. Sort of went through how I came up with this, how to come up with this data for this specific terrain. So yeah, that's it for this video. I think I might do more, sort of like developing and making videos sort of gives you motivation to keep making this cool stuff. And if you wanna follow along, subscribe. Maybe I'll add my Twitter in the description. Follow that too. I do some other stuff like AR. Maybe you're interested in that. But yeah, that's it. See you next time. Bye.